As a child, I was very shy. Because of this, my parents enrolled me in what they called a preschool that was once a week for 3 hours. It wasn't necessarily a daycare, but a mini school that took me at 18 months old. And this helped to socialize me as well as taught me about learning to read and write. As a toddler attending this school, it's really where I started to learn the alphabet as well as at home. Once I was old enough to start holding crayons, pencils, markers, etc., I began learning to write in the letter books where they have dots that form letters and you trace the dots to make the letters. I really began writing a little bit more independently, though, around age 4 in kindergarten. I also attended a formal preschool, which helped me with reading because they would read to me there and I would be read to at home, either before bed or by my older brothers. By kindergarten, I was read this story, Five Little Monkeys, so many times, so I had it memorized and could repeat the lines like the common one, Mama told the doctor, and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. And I would do the actions that correspond to it, like waving my finger no. I attended kindergarten at a public school around age 4. I was able to continue my abilities of reading and writing there, and I remember the school I attended having those huge storybooks that the teacher would read from, and the words were big enough for the class to see as well as follow along in. In elementary school, I know we used the AR program. For me, it was fun because I was a decent reader and could pass the test and get my name on the board so the class could have an AR party. I don't remember my teachers leaving any students out, though. If there was a student not on the board, she would help them and make sure they got their name up there so they were also included. I think this is very important to remember as a teacher, and it's important that we take our time with other students who may be struggling. Personally, I also felt I was a stronger writer than reader. I liked writing more because I was able to use my creativity. However, in first grade, my teacher would read to us every day before lunch. I remember this was where I learned about the Junie B. Jones stories and instantly became obsessed. I think I read almost every one. Besides Junie B. Jones, I also enjoyed reading the Magic Treehouse stories, which I was also exposed to throughout my elementary school classes. For me, middle school did not treat me well reading-wise. This is where I began to dislike reading because it's where we were told what to read instead of giving us a choice. In middle school, I took all advanced classes. I can remember in 6th grade, the first book we were told to read was Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. To me, this was an extremely hard book and I did not understand it. This definitely showed on the test because it's where I received my first failing grade, which is also where I started to have a negative attitude towards reading in school. Writing-wise, I cannot specifically remember any negative instances in middle school. I do remember having to do the stereotypical research paper and essays on whatever book we've read. I know I was definitely challenged throughout middle school with reading and writing, but I also feel like in some ways I may have been challenged too much, especially in the beginning, and that frustrated me. I can confidently say that by the end of middle school I did not enjoy reading, and this attitude definitely carried on with me throughout my school career. Courses and was given a number of books to read like The Crucible, 1984, and Of Mice and Men. One activity we did with Of Mice and Men was have discussions about each class about what we read the night before, and then when we finished the book, we watched the movie. I actually enjoyed this because it helped keep me engaged as a reader, and I was actually focused on the text and what was happening versus reading a book and not comprehending what I'm actually reading, which for me happened a lot of times with a lot of books when I was told to read. From elementary to middle to high school, I can definitely say my feelings about reading declined, but my feelings about writing stayed pretty neutral. I think this also played a big part in my feelings toward what college classes I took as well. In college, I didn't necessarily take any classes except for one that were helpful towards reading. I feel like the classes I had to take gave us boring books to read, which didn't help my attitude towards reading change very much. I think this was different as a college student because we have to read from textbooks, which aren't very exciting. Then, if we were given chapter books, I think we should have some say. One class I did enjoy reading the books in was Children's Lit. Although the books were for kids, they were interesting and fun, and the concepts we discussed about the books were also intriguing. We read many books in this class, ranging from Ivy and Bean to The Green Glass Sea. I enjoyed these books because they were important for my major as a future teacher, but also because they were different from the usual children's books like Charlotte's Web or The Cat in the Hat, even though those are also great. As a writer, I think I began not to like it so much because the papers in college that we had to write became a lot longer and a lot more challenging, and I wouldn't get as much feedback on them. I can also say that challenge-wise, history classes were my hardest subject, and I tried to avoid taking them if I could. I'm not sure if it's because the books we had to read in history are a little dull, and the writing was very factual, but I always seem to struggle in these classes with both reading and writing. Currently, I enjoy reading, but mainly for pleasure. It's hard to find time during the semester to read independently because my course load is usually too rigorous. With writing, I still hold a neutral position. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. Personally, it just depends on what type of writing I'm required to do, whether it's research or an essay based off of a book, which I think applies to a lot of other people as well. Looking back, I think all of my prior teachers have helped shape me into the type of reader and writer I am today, and have also played a huge part in contributing to my positive and negative experiences in literacy. I think the best reading experience I've had was in my children's lit class that I mentioned earlier. The variety of books we read, as well as the discussions we would have in the class, were very helpful for me as a future teacher. My professor pointed out many aspects like gender and the stereotypical family roles that you commonly see in books, like the mom cooks and cleans and the dad works hard to provide for the family. But she also pointed out that there were a number of books out there that challenge that, which applies more to life today. My worst reading experience, however, is definitely from 6th grade with Oliver Twist. This was a little bit of a reality check for me because it let me know that reading from 6th grade on isn't butterflies and rainbows. However, I do think that should be changed. I think a lot of times students have that wake-up call in school, and it changes their whole attitude towards reading and writing. But I think if teachers were to give more of a choice, and if they were able to keep students interested and engaged, then their opinions towards reading and writing may not change to negative, just grow and vary with their maturity. I think I've always been strong at writing, so I've never really had any huge issues, luckily. In high school, however, I took a journalism class. The teacher was one that was not afraid to run your paper in red ink with all of your errors. Initially, I was regretting taking the class because each article I turned in had red all over it, which made me think I might have failed or gotten a really bad grade. However, as time went on and I met with the teacher each time, she helped me grow as a reader and writer and helped me to see how different journalism writing is from regular essay writing. I enjoyed this experience because she was patient with me and explained all of the corrections she made, as well as would take time out of her day outside of class to help me learn and grow. I think that as a teacher, this is very important because it's our job to help our students do the exact same thing as they go through their school career.